Thank you very much for staying with us. Now, consumers are spending big on Black Friday. In that rush to get the best deal, whether in-store or online, comes an increased risk of theft and fraud. Now, 90% of the world's data was created in the last 2 years, and more than 3.3 billion data records were compromised in just the first half of 2018 alone. Now, this is not just a payments industry problem, it's an every industry problem, and preventing fraud is a year-round 24-hour-per-day effort. Now, Bevan Smith, he's the head of risk at Visa Sub Saharan Africa, joins me in studio this evening. Mr. Smith, indeed, thank you very much for your time. Nice to have you. Swipe, swipe, swipe. It's Black Friday. Everyone's having a good time. But the seriousness of all of this is that it comes with increased risk. Talk to us a bit about that.
Absolutely. So we'd be the first to say that, any technology comes with risk. But what we're really trying to drive here is that balance between security and convenience. Yeah. And to get that balance right, it's about trust, isn't it? So it's the time when I pull out my card and I look at the Visa logo on the card, am I comfortable that my information is going to be safe and that actually the transaction is going to be convenient from that perspective? Unfortunately, what we find, though, is that fraudsters are there to exploit any type of weakness or convenience in the system. Yeah. And that's the challenge we face on a daily basis. Yeah.
Let's talk about how you at Visa, for example, are making these online purchases safer for consumers.
Yeah. The key thing there is about making sure that you know who you're dealing with. When you walk into a store and you present your card, you've got your details on there, you've got a chip, you put a pen in there, and that what we would call authenticates you from that perspective. When you're online, it's a lot harder. Yeah. And so really the work that we're doing in the background to protect the payments ecosystem is about using artificial intelligence to ensure that we can understand we're dealing with the customer and that the customer is dealing with a reputable merchant, which is really important. So being able to use a website that has got that's secure. You're not surfing the website on the mall, on the shopping mall's Wi-Fi, and you're looking for that Visa logo on the site to say, yes, this is secure and I can comfortably enter my card details there to process a payment.
During periods such as this, I mean, it's Black Friday and you also have the festive season looming large. I mean, do we see a massive increase in this kind of fraud and theft, in particular during this time of the year? And at what percentage are we looking at?
So I would say that, fraud is relative to the transactions that we have. I said every bank, would have a level of fraud that they're willing to accept because, again, they're trying to facilitate that transaction. Globally, what we see is about 7 US cents per $100 is fraud. That's the level. So it's about 7 basis points. Now, yes, it sounds very small, but that number is quite big if you consider that we probably processed about 360 billion transactions in a year. Yeah. So there's work to do, absolutely, and that is our challenge, is about making it more secure, more convenient. I think what is really exciting is when you move from a card, which is a physical piece of plastic, to an actual digital payment device. So now you use your cell phone. And so when you're doing that, all of a sudden I need to use my fingerprint to authenticate the transaction, in a sort of face-to-face scenario. Yeah. That automatically just increases the security level. It also makes it more convenient, and from a consumer perspective, you get richer data around, what does my consumer like, what don't they like, and that's really where it gets exciting.
And people are starting to prefer a lot more digital payments more than, nobody carries cash around anymore. Yeah. Is that what we're seeing, despite some of the challenges, perhaps still?
Absolutely. So what we really, when people ask us, what is your biggest competitor? It's not the other payment schemes. Visa's biggest competitor is cash, and really from the perspective that the convenience of cash is the difficult thing, and that's what we really need to work towards. So having to integrate a card or a payment device. So now you can use your watch, you get a payment ring, you get a payment, payment tag, all these types of things. So that's really where we're wanting to get to the point where it's seamless. I think where digital payments start to take it, as I say, is about really understanding the customer. What do they like? What don't they like? When do I offer them a discount on something? You were chatting about it earlier on. So what is really meaningful to them? Because if I don't if I don't wear lipstick and it's 50%, I'm not gonna buy it, right? So it's also creating that type of stickiness with consumers as well.
How has technology, mobile technology, and all of this changed the landscape in terms of commerce? It's a huge move, and I kind of like the idea of not carrying cash around and just swiping, but it does come with its few challenges that you already mentioned. But changing the whole landscape itself, how has it done that?
So when we move to digital, what we now have is that we have devices that are aware in a way, right? They are live. And I mean, when we talk about Internet of Things, actually your mobile phone is a very fancy Internet of Things device.
Yeah.
And so now you've got a whole number of different scenarios you can play out there. So the classic one we always talk about is that, so if you're trying to process a transaction, you're in a foreign country, you haven't let your bank know, but you swiped your card.
That's correct.
The technology now allows us to be able to say, actually, hold on, we've picked up that your cell phone is actually in the same country.
Yes.
And so automatically we can be, actually, we're not going to inconvenience you, we're not going to decline the transaction, we're going to approve it. And so those are the types of use cases that start coming through there, which is, as I say, quite exciting in terms of payments.
You're absolutely right. I recall at some point I was elsewhere in the world, and I got a call. There's a transaction that's happening where you are. Are you really there? So it's really exciting. I mean, what should people look at? Let's talk about Black Friday. I mean, it's the festive season too. Last minute advice. We're running out of time for consumers in general, not just for Black Friday, but the way that we tend to spend. And if we look at the numbers, we're not really doing well in terms of saving.
Absolutely right. So I think I was watching your program earlier on. You were talking about crossing the 3 billion rand mark. And it's big, and I think so that's the interesting thing. Consumers now have had a little bit of practice around Black Friday. They know what to expect, and so I think they're saving their money for that. What to look out for? So in the face-to-face environment. So when you're standing at a till point, again, look for the Visa logo. Make sure you're dealing with a reputable vendor. You're buying products where you know that your card details are safe. It's even more important when you're online, making sure that you using a merchant that, firstly, I mean, I always say to people, go online, read the reviews. If you read the reviews about Amazon, whatever it gets to be, there's going to be something about customer service, returns, fraud levels. So make sure that you're doing that. Don't use public Wi-Fi to go and process transactions. That's really important. Make sure people are not seeing your card, your card details. The other thing is what we always say is that, like, if it's too good to be true, if the deal is too good to be true, it probably is. Someone is someone is trying to catch you out there to try and hook you to divulge your card details.
Right. Thanks indeed for your time. It was a pleasure having you, in studio with us, Bevan Smith, who's the head of risk at Visa Sub Saharan Africa. We're talking, of course, about how technology, can prevent fraud, especially this Black Friday going into the festive season. You be careful out there.